Hello and welcome back to the F2 show. I'm your host Fraser Ford, and joining me to review the action from this weekend we have French and Spanish Formula 4 driver Hugh Barter and inside F2's very own Luke John Buckle. Coming up on the show then, we reflect on a Brazilian masterclass as Felipe Drugovich does the double in Barcelona. Some first podiums this weekend for our rookies. We reflect on their strong performances. And we take a look at how this weekend's results impact on the standings. But before we do all of that, Hugh, great to have you with us. First of all, how are you?
Good, thank you. It's nice to be here, and thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Let's break down your season so far then. Top of the standings by 67 points in French F4 after some brilliant victories. A win in the opening weekend of the Spanish F4 as well, with Campos second in the standings, just 6 points from the top of the standings in that. What an unbelievable start to the season. How have you found it?
Yeah, it's been a great start, like you said. Obviously, there was a lot of work and preparation coming into this year. I try to take as much of my experience from last season towards this season. Obviously, it seems to be paying off at the moment. But yeah, obviously, there's still a long way to go, and hopefully, just keep it up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, good. And Luke, obviously, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. You've been following Hugh's season so far, haven't you? What have you made of his success so far?
Yeah, he's doing really well. Great win in Po and Nagaro, and it's great balancing France and Spain. Yeah, it's very impressive so far, and hopefully it continues into Jerez next weekend and the rest of the season.
Yeah, good. And in terms of your next race, Hugh, I think that's next weekend, isn't it? Whereabouts are you at the moment?
Currently, I am in Alzira, just 5 minutes from the Campos workshop, and I'll be here training, preparing myself for the upcoming race.
Brilliant. And in terms of your targets, your aspirations for next weekend and for the season, really, it is obviously going for the win next weekend, and for the season, is that hoping to maybe win both categories? Is that the aim?
Yeah, of course, that's always the aim, and hopefully coming at the next weekend, we can maybe be leading the championship. So obviously, that's on the table.
Yeah, brilliant. Fingers crossed. And Luke, you'll be covering that as well on our Road to F1 feature. And you guys can follow Hugh's journey as well across our website, social media channels at _inside F2 on Instagram, at F2 Inside on Twitter. So yeah, keep up to date with Hugh's progress on those. Okay, let's get stuck into some Formula 2 then. And there's only one place to start, really, isn't there? Double winner, championship leader Felipe Drugovich. That was outrageous, Luke. Outrageous weekend, wasn't it? Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah, it was brilliant from Drugovich, double victory, and he's had a very good start of the season. Of course, he's leading the championship ahead of Porsche, and he hasn't been making mistakes like other guys like Yuri Vip. He just kept it cool under pressure. And the first stint today, making the tyres last as long as he did, was very, very impressive. And he's doing a good job. And hopefully he continues into Monaco and the rest of the season. And it's strange that he hasn't been picked up by any F1 teams, but he's doing the job on track.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. He continues his streak of when he wins, he dominates races, Hugh. Is that something you can relate to, first of all, in your racing? Because you seem to be doing a bit of that as well.
Um, yeah, I think obviously if you're winning, you're usually fast, so it's a pretty common denominator. If you're out in front, you have clear air, you can focus on your driving, and you don't tend to get too distracted. If you're getting too focused on the car behind, then you start to make mistakes. But if you can zone those cars out behind you and just focus on yourself, you usually tend to drive away.
Is that what it is? Is the clear air? I suppose it's a bit of confidence as well, isn't it? If you are out in front, as you say, that usually means you're the quickest driver. So is that what it is? It's a combination of those things.
Yeah, and I think also if you start to drive away in like the first two laps, it's a bit of a bit of a confident booster. Maybe not so much the case in Drogovich's position since he was obviously on his own and Jack had already pitted. But for example, in my position, if you're starting to drive away from the guy behind, it's it starts to give you a bit of confidence. And if the guy behind sees you driving away, sometimes they can get a bit flustered and start to overpush and make a couple mistakes.
Yeah, really interesting. Luke, you've watched Formula 2 for a little while now, a long time. Obviously, the first time we've seen a double race winner in the 2 race per weekend format since 2016, Antonio Giovinazzi. It doesn't happen very often, does it? Where does this weekend and Felipe Drugovich's weekend rank amongst, the all-time great F2 weekends? Do you think it's up there?
Yeah, certainly up there. We had when Lewis Hamilton was in GP2 back in 2006. He had a very good weekend in Monaco. He dominated that weekend, and he had a double win in his home track at Silverstone. And we all remember his drive in Turkey, in Istanbul, storming through the field. Yeah, Nico Rosberg as well, back in his time in 2005, had a double win in Bahrain to end the season. And yeah, Drugovich's weekend this weekend certainly up there. We had a couple of guys win 2 races last season, Yuri Vips and Oscar Piastri, of course in the 3 race format. But when a driver wins 2 races, it's usually a mark of quite a very good driver instead of just a good driver. Where if you win one race and you don't come through the field in the second race or the first race, the reverse grid, it's it doesn't show up as well in the championship standings. But yeah, Drugovich is doing the business.
This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a win from P4 in the sprint race, and then a win from P10 today in the feature race. It's not just winning from third, fourth. That's 2 really solid, strong drives this weekend, isn't it? And you've already mentioned about the fact that he's not part of a driver academy. Do you think any Formula One teams will be looking at him, thinking that he could be a good fit for their academy?
Potentially, Red Bull have got a lot of traffic in their program. Of course, Yuri Vips, Lawson, Iwasa, Deruvala. Yeah, Alpine have got Doohan. The thing is, it is Drugovich's 3rd season in Formula 2, so if you're not performing now, when are you going to perform? So it's about time he is performing, but at least he's doing the business now. But the thing is, there's only 20 Formula 1 seats. So we'll have to see how it goes. If he wins the championship, then there isn't much of an argument for a Formula 1 team to not put him in the car. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, long way to go. Yeah. Do you think he'd be a good fit for example, a team like Aston Martin who don't necessarily have any junior drivers? Obviously, teams have to put drivers into the car for FP1s this season. Do you think he'd be a good fit for Aston Martin and potentially having a bit of an affiliation with them, for example?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Aston Martin don't have a driver academy like Mercedes and Red Bull and some other teams. But yeah, I mean, Vettel is getting on a bit. Who knows? Maybe he'll be retiring in the next few years, so there could be an opening for Drugovich and Aston Martin. And Lance Stroll looks like he'll be at Aston Martin for a long time. But yeah, we'll have
Forever.
to wait and see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have to wait and see. Djokovic is all he's got to do is just keep his head down, keep delivering the results, and yeah, see where it takes him into 23 and the future.
Yeah, brilliant weekend by Felipe Drugovich. And what a weekend as well for MP Motorsport. 4 out of 4 wins, that is, or that they've won the last 4 races in Barcelona, having won both of them in 2020 as well. One with Drugovich, one with Matsushita as well. Really strong weekend for them, Hugh. And also Clement Novalak obviously joining the party, P5 in the feature race. Good weekend all round, right?
Yeah. There's not much you could really ask for, or much more you could ask for from a team aspect. Getting 2 wins is probably the best you're going to come from it. Obviously, Clement had a decent round as well. But yeah, hopefully they can get closer in times, because at the moment it seems like Drogovic is outperforming Clement. But it is Clement's first year, so we see.
Yeah, he is a rookie, isn't he? But yeah, I think that's his first real show today. Well, he did have a good race in Imola as well, a P4 in Imola, but real first show today where he really came through the field, didn't he? And looked really strong. Were you quite impressed with him? Obviously, on the soft tyre at the end as well. Difficult day in terms of tyre management, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a surprise for everyone how well the soft tire worked. But I think specifically for MP because it was both Drugovich and Novalak that got the soft tire to work quite well and for a long time frame. So I think they just had that tire suited well to their car.
How difficult is, I mean, you'll know from your racing, how difficult is it to hold on to those tyres, especially when the temperature is so hot like it was today? That's not easy, is it?
Yeah, it's really difficult, and it's usually a case of if you're sliding or starting to do any small mistakes, the tire temperature overheats, and it's really hard to get it to cool down again. So, yeah, kudos to the drivers because they did a really good job.
Yeah, really impressive stuff. Luke, I think you had a question to hear around tyres, didn't you?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of guys in the British F4 Championship complaining of graining. Has it been a similar story in Spanish and French F4?
In the French car, it seems to be quite a big issue. Not so much in the Spanish. Surprisingly, this year we've actually had minimal graining. But in the French, it seems to be an issue among the paddock, with all of us getting a lot of front graining, and we're having to do a lot of tire warm up, getting the tire to its correct temperature and making sure it's ready to be pushed on.
And does that make it tricky to follow? How tricky is it to follow when the tyre starts to grain? Do you have to adapt your driving style in any way to compensate?
Yeah, specifically in the French because we're getting a lot of front graining. You just have to, in honesty, you just have to try and get past the graining, and try not to over push the corner because the worst thing you can do is like make a massive mistake and lose a second in just one corner. So just being focused and making sure you don't make those mistakes.
Hugh, do you, with your affiliation with Campos, do you speak to the Campos drivers in Formula 2 and Formula 3, and do you perhaps get a bit of advice around tyre management from those guys?
Yeah, sometimes. A lot of the time we are training together or just having a bit of fun at Campos. But yeah, occasionally we'll ask, what's this like? What's this? How do you do this? Because, eventually, hopefully, one of us are there so we can use that information in the future.
There you go, prepping yourself for your Formula 3, Formula 2 appearances later on in your career. Good stuff. Okay, that's MP and their really good weekend. Actually, Ian Hack on Twitter raises a really good point around some of the investigations because obviously Felipe Drugovich was under investigation, Teo Pourchaire and Frederick Vesti as well. Luke, I think you have an update for us with regards to that.
Yeah, so when Felipe Drugovich made his pit stop in the feature race, his front right tyre, when the mechanic changed it, the front right tyre wasn't placed flat on the ground and it was rolling in the pit lane. And so I suppose that rule is in place to want to stop teams just placing the tyre any which way really, because if the tyre starts rolling down the pit lane, of course that's a big danger. So yeah, it wasn't picked up at the time in commentary, and yeah, it's interesting. I've never before today. I didn't even know that was a rule, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
So to confirm, no penalties dished out to Drugovich, to Pourchaire and to Vesti?
No, yeah, no penalties. I think there was a fine for Vesti or Porsche, but there was no like grid drops or 5 second time penalty or anything like that. Just a fine.
Good stuff. We wouldn't want that spectacular weekend from Felipe Drugovich to then, be ruled out because of a penalty. So good stuff. Love that. Okay, so obviously a sublime weekend for MP and Drugovich, made even better by the fact that his championship contenders and rivals had rough weekends. Jehan Daruvala missing. Well, he had a really good sprint race, but struggled in the feature race, not scoring a retirement, which is bad news for him. Teo Pourchaire, Yuri Vips, Liam Lawson, not their best weekends either, Luke. Let's start with Yuri Vips. His torrid luck continues. Well, I say luck. Obviously, the slow stop in the feature race is out of his control, but the spin in the sprint race is in his control. Driver error, and that follows on from obviously a spin in Imola as well. Is he under pressure? Is that what's really showing?
Yeah, he's under massive pressure. He's shown good speed in his time in Formula Two and even before that in F3, but just these tiny mistakes, big mistakes really. But the spin in the first race, that threw away a good result for him because he was on for at least a top five, maybe even a podium. And he did the FP1 for Red Bull, replacing Sergio Perez. And Red Bull don't put drivers in their Formula One car for no reason. So they obviously think Yuri's got a lot of talent, but making mistakes that won't help him get to Formula One. And he's got to cut it out heading into Monaco and the rest of the season because he's already a long way behind Drugovich and Porsche in the championship.
Yeah, he really is. Hugh, Luke's obviously just mentioned the FP1 appearance. Do you think that almost distracted him a little bit? Do you think it impacted on his focus throughout the weekend?
Not specifically. I think the FP1 session was before their qualifying. So like we saw in qualifying, he was still managed to set a good lap time and potentially even put it on pole. I think he was like only like 700ths away or something like this. So he still had the like really good pace, but just made a mistake in the race, and you know this happens. But like you said, he needs to focus a bit more and try not to make these type of mistakes because he has the pace, but it doesn't mean anything if he can't finish the race.
Yeah, we talk about consistency being the key to winning the title in Formula 2, and we just aren't seeing it from those guys at the moment, are we? Liam Lawson, obviously a P16 in qualifying, almost ruled him out of contention from the get-go, didn't it, this weekend? Vips, a mistake in there, and Teo Pourchaire maybe not necessarily as consistent as he'd like to be. The only drivers you'd really say are being consistent at the moment are Drugovich and maybe Daruvula. Obviously, not his fault today with the retirement, but are they the only two you'd say are being consistent in terms of every race, Luke?
Yeah, I'd say so. That's what it's all about, consistency. Just putting in the results, a podium, a top five, whatever, just getting the points and keeping out the barrier. And that's what we saw with Mick Schumacher in 2020. He wasn't blisteringly quick, but he just banged in the results, got the points, and he's doing pretty good at Haas in Formula One. So there is the pathway for these guys if they can keep consistent, but it's all about results and not just pure pace.
Yeah, 100%. We actually have a question from friend of the show, Jim Kimberley. Jim, over to you.
Hey F2 show, difficult weekend for the Red Bull Junior team, in particular the experienced drivers. Iwasa, the only person as a rookie to get onto the podium out of all of them. Is it going to be Yuki Tsunoda just keeping the AlphaTauri seat next year? Are any of these drivers going to make it into Formula One?
Great question, Jim. Hugh, we'll come to you for that one.
To be honest, at the moment, I don't think so. Because look, we have Sergio doing a really good job at Red Bull. Max obviously signed for how long? And then we have Yuki. I think he's got this year. I don't know if he's got another year. But obviously he's part of the Honda Formula Dream project. And Pierre Gasly is doing a mega job this for the past 2 seasons now in AlphaTauri. So, at this point, I don't see a seat opening up anytime soon, but you never know. Something might happen at the end of the year, or, results might play a big part in who gets the seat. So we'll see.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Hypothetically, if Gasly was to go elsewhere, for example, and maybe go and be part of a manufacturer, if you like, do you think who do you think is in that prime position at the moment for a Red Bull driver to be promoted?
By the sounds of it, Vips sounds quite a good option. I think he's got really good raw pace. He's very aggressive in his driving style. Maybe it reminds me a bit of Max. And yeah, like you said, Red Bull don't put drivers into their car for free practice if they don't think they're worth it. So I think he's a good option.
There you go, big praise there, comparing him to Max Verstappen. But you are right that his outright pace is electric, isn't it? So he just needs to put together a few race weekends. At where are we? At Arrival_1443 on Twitter. I think I've got that right. Ask Luke, do you think that Prema are trying too much with their qualifying strategies? Do you in fact, do you think that, Hauger's obviously struggled a little bit this season? Do you think he is trying too hard? Do you think that's his issue, perhaps?
Maybe. I mean, we saw how quick Hauger was in F3 last year, of course, winning the championship, but F2 is, of course, a big step up in power, downforce, grip, everything. But I'm sure as we get further on into the season, maybe he'll step it up. But I think a lot of these guys, when they step into F2 and maybe even further down the ladder, it is a 2-year program. So we've seen guys like Schumacher, they did 2 years, although Russell and Lando, they did only 1 year. But a lot of guys do 2 years, where the first year is more of a learning year, and then the second year they have an assault on the championship. So I think the pressure, of course, there's pressure on Hauger, but there isn't as much pressure on Hauger as there will be maybe in a year's time. So this year is probably all about learning for him, and then next year we can maybe attack the championship.
Yeah, and presumably that's the same for a lot of rookies on the field. And 4 first-time podiums this weekend. 4 rookies: Jack Doohan, Frederick Vesti, Logan Sargent, and Ayumi Iwasa as well. Who shall we start with? Let's go with Jack Doohan. Highest average qualifier this season, but he's obviously not been able to convert that qualifying pace into race pace until now. What a weekend for him. Probably picked the worst weekend to pick to have a good weekend, as Alex Jakes was saying in commentary. It just happened that he caught a Felipe Drugovich who was on amazing form. But that's got to be his best weekend in Formula 2, Luke.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he did really good. He was very good from Doohan. I remember last year in Jeddah, he did very well. It was very impressive in one of the races where he finished 5th or 6th, I think. But this season, he struggled slightly, but this weekend in Spain was a big step up for him. And hopefully he continues it. We've seen with a couple of guys in the past when they have 1 or 2 good weekends and they drop off again. But yeah, of course, with the Alpine link, there could be an opening for him maybe if Fernando Alonso decides to hang up the boots at the end of the season. But yeah, he did good in Spain. And Spain is one of these tracks where if you're quick in Spain, it's quite an all-round circuit. And if you're quick in Catalonia, you're usually good at most other tracks. So yeah, hopefully he keeps it up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Frederick Vesti as well. Hugh, a good weekend for him. In fact, did someone swap the cars around, the ART cars around? Because Vesti had a good weekend and Porsche didn't, did he? So we talk about the cursed ART. Maybe someone swapped the cars around. But that's why Mercedes have got him as a junior driver, isn't it? For weekends like this weekend from Frederick Vesti.
Yeah, correct. Actually, me and my friend were talking about Vesti struggling a bit towards the start of the season, and then come later on in like 30 minutes after, we see him like put it on P3 in qualifying. So it was nice to see that, and hopefully he can keep that up for the rest of the season.
Is that something he can build on? Is that something that you see, in your driving, that sometimes all it takes is for one good weekend and that's it, you're up and running and it flows for the rest of the season?
Yeah, and it's usually a lot to do with confidence. If you have a good round, usually it carries to the next one. You feel a lot more motivated, excited to do well. So it's like a carrot to have.
Yeah, brilliant. Hopefully that does give him the confidence to push on. And Logan Sargent, Luke, a P3 and a P4, his strongest weekend in Formula 2 as well. The rookies really came into their own this weekend, actually, didn't they? Is that because it's familiar circuit to a lot of them, that a lot of them have raced in Barcelona in Formula 3 and other junior categories? Do you think that really showed this weekend?
Yeah, I think so, because Catalonia, it's every driver knows Catalonia like the back of their hand, really, don't they? So I think that kind of levels the playing field a bit with the rookies, bringing them up to speed a bit more, where compared to track like Jeddah, where it's very new and it's of course a street circuit, where the drivers maybe don't know so much. But yeah, it was a good weekend from Sargent, and he struggled slightly earlier in the season. And it's just all about him getting that consistency. He nearly won F3, didn't he, in 2020, and then he had to watch Piastri dominate F2 last year, and he struggled a bit in F3, but he's adapted well to F2 so far, and it's going well for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really strong weekend for him. Exactly. Hopefully he can push on and have another good season. And finally, Ayumi Iwasa. Maybe not so much luck in the feature race. Probably no avoiding the back of Jehan Daruvala's car there. But again, his first podium in Formula 3 this weekend, Hugh. In Formula 2 this weekend. Good weekend for him. Will he be happy with that?
Yeah, I think he would be. I was actually quite surprised with his performance this entire season, and it's been really impressive. I think in Bahrain he had made a mistake in quali, and that put him out of contention. But then in the races he came back really, really strong. A bit unfortunate in the feature race. I think in like the last lap he was in 8th from last, and then dropped back to like 14th. So I think there's definitely some sort of pace there and some sort of talent, but just lacking a bit of experience and maybe a Red Bull drive soon.
Absolutely. Let's wait and see. And finally, a word for Kaylen Williams, obviously stalling from pole in the sprint race. How heartbreaking must that be, Hugh? Have you ever had that kind of situation before, where perhaps a mechanical issue has stopped you from starting the grid from pole position or something similar?
Not that I recall, and I don't want to recall. But yeah, obviously having something like that happen to you is quite disappointing, and it's just part of part of motorsport, part of sport in general. And you just have to get on with it and keep your focus on the weekend, because if that stops you from performing well, then you might as well just stop the sport, because it's what you do.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose it'd be rude not to have a word from you on your team as well, Campos. Obviously, difficult weekend with Ralph Boschung not being able to take part, and we wish him all the best and hope to see him in Monaco. But Ollie Caldwell, how would you sum up his weekend? Do you think he'll be happy with the weekend?
Yeah, obviously it wasn't an easy weekend for him. But actually in the feature race, he had a good comeback after having an incident with Hauger and then pitting and being last, like a fair way behind the pack. It then came home to finish like 14th without a safety car. So like it was a good effort, and I think slowly and steady he's getting up to pace and getting closer to Ralph.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Another weekend next weekend in Monaco will be a little bit closer. So good news for him and good news for Campos. Okay, let's take a look at the championship standings before we leave then. Felipe Drugovich's almost perfect weekend means he leaves the weekend with a 26-point lead over Théo Pourchaire heading into Monaco. Tough weekends, as we've spoken about, for Jehan Daruvala and for Liam Lawson. They remain 3rd and 4th in the standings. Marcus Armstrong and Logan Sargent move into the top 6. And the team standings? An unbelievable weekend for MP means that they extend their lead at the top of the standings to 23 points from ART. Carlin jump high-tech into 3rd in the standings. And Dams move into the top 6. And the full standings are available on our website, www.insidef2.com. Okay, that's all we have time for today. My thanks to Hugh and to Luke for joining me on today's show. And thank you to you guys at home for watching as well. If you've enjoyed the show, please make sure you give it a like, subscribe for more Formula 2 content, hashtag the F2 show if you want to get involved in the conversation, please do. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.